Women in Africa lack access to basic property rights. This is the finding of a new report authored by Terence Corrigan of the Institute of Race Relations, who's joining us today. Terence, could you give us an overview of the state of women's property rights throughout the continent?
This is a question that, in a sense, should have been disposed of a long time ago. One of the very few issues that there seems to be some consensus around within the African Union is the need for gender equality. In a sense, this is one that doesn't threaten the big political power relationships. We have countries that have quotas for women in parliament, for instance. But it's interesting that across the whole world, if you look at the World Bank research on this, Africa stands out as the region where the greatest proportion of legal hindrances to women's property rights exist. Across the world, you could say about 40% of countries have one of about five broad categories of hindrances. Inheritance rights, discrimination between sons and daughters. In Africa, it's fully 2/3. And at least one country, that's Mauritania, all five of these are present. In other words, the formal legal system does not work for women. Now, that in itself is concerning enough. But when one digs a little deeper, one finds that even in countries like Rwanda, where the government has, I think, put in a great deal of sincere effort into equalizing those relationships and have actively tried to bring women into the property holding economy. This often is held up in implementation by civil servants who don't know the law, just don't care. There's an anecdote that goes around in Africa: property cannot own property, and this is often the orientation that women in Africa are subjected to. Beyond that, your formal system is often a rather limited part of one's experience of the exercise of authority. Traditional and customary, or what one might call informal systems of authority, have a great deal of influence, particularly over the distribution of land. Now, understand, land is just one form of property, and these issues rebound everywhere. But land is in a sense the most important one, since for societies that remain predominantly agrarian. And where urbanization still has to reach that sort of tipping point, that is a major marker of your prospects, and that is something that we still find ourselves fighting against.
So, Terence, apart from the legal safeguards that may or may not be in place, what other factors might be playing a role here, like social and cultural norms?
Well, just talk about the sort of practical side of trying to trying to enforce your legal rights. It may be possible that in certain circumstances, a woman can approach a court, but that court might be a two-day journey away. You have crops to tend in your fields, you have children to look after. In practical terms, it's very difficult. Now, you find that a lot of those legal safeguards are undermined in the implication. There's been research in Kenya about this, for instance, where legislation on land and on gender equality is just often not understood by judicial officers. That's a major problem, and I think that a lot of Africa observers can attest to this, the weakness of the legal structure. But going beyond the formal, let's say the Western system of property holding, I think it's as much as 90% of land in Africa is not formally titled. It's held in terms of customary law by usually in the trusteeship of traditional leaders who may or may not have the respect of their communities. There are also religious conventions, particularly in the Muslim parts of the continent. And what we have seen are instances where women have been expelled from their property when they are widowed because the husband's clan tends to take possession. We have also seen some crossovers between this customary landholding and the courts. There have been cases in Malawi, in Botswana, in Swaziland, Eswatini now, which do raise some hopes that women who are deprived of this equality by convention and by tradition may increasingly be able to turn to those courts. But remember, there is a great deal of resistance to this. Even a country like Uganda, which, like Rwanda, has put a great deal of effort into gender equality. I'm told that there is a sense of an old boys club. You don't want to upset powerful traditional, customary, or religious constituencies. In Mali, there was an attempt to rewrite some of the legislation around these things. And there was a demonstration of some 60,000 people in the capital, including many women, who argued that this is absolutely unacceptable because it violates violates Islamic jurisprudence. These are tough questions, and I don't think that they're going to be solved by government action alone. It takes a great deal to shift people's perceptions, to move people from a space where being an African and living in your culture means X, to say, well, it can also mean Y. Fortunately, there are some examples. In Malawi, for instance, traditional leaders became very involved in campaigning against child trafficking. But once again, this is a slow and probably multi-generational process. And unfortunately, those at the bottom of the social pyramid, uneducated rural women, often depending on subsistence agriculture, will find themselves at the greatest mercy.
So, Terence, why are property rights important in general and for women in particular? And what can be done to strengthen women's property rights in the continent?
Property rights make your property holding secure. Across Africa, people have assets but not property. Women who are deprived property are very much at the mercy of abusive husbands, for instance. Plus, it also constricts their options. And there's research on this that shows when women own, let's say, their piece of land, they don't have to be there 24/7 to maintain that possession. They can go out and start small businesses. They can shift their production from maize to, let's say, cashew nuts, or whatever the case may be. But in order for this to happen, we need property rights to be accepted as a default position across the continent. It's no good talking about women's property rights if a secure property holding does not exist within within society at large.
Thank you very much, Terence. We'll link to the report in the description below. Please remember, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also check out the link in the description to our 30-day free trial. Let us know what you think. Are women's property rights being sufficiently protected in the continent, and what can be done to improve women's access to property rights?